Joining us is David Cross, a partner with Deacons lawyers. David, there was a lot of confusion over the WorkChoices reforms. Does similar confusion exist about the Rudd Forward with Fairness reforms?
There is the potential for confusion, and that's why we're asking business to get a good, close look at the compliance needs that will flow from this new regulation. Forward with Fairness in many ways represents a continuation of certain elements of the WorkChoices model. Other elements have changed significantly. It's important that businesses know precisely where they stand.
The new legislation winds back a number of WorkChoices reforms. It abolishes Australian workplace agreements and introduces new individual transitional employment agreements. What effect will this have on business?
Those businesses that had a substantial exposure to AWAs will have considerable work to do in the short term. They will have to make a decision quickly about whether to take up the new form of individual agreement, the ITEAs. They will also have to consider whether it's worthwhile persevering with individual agreements or move to a collective model. So for those businesses, which includes a lot of businesses in resources and construction, there will be immediate decisions to be made.
David, are unions likely to become more powerful in the new environment? Only 1 in 5 workers belongs to a trade union. So are the new reforms likely to rekindle interest in unions?
I think the position will be that unions' institutional influence will remain the same. It will be retained. Possible erosion of that influence, which might have occurred had WorkChoices continued, will be avoided. The unions do have a guaranteed place in the new system. There will be a feature of industrial bargaining for the foreseeable future, and so participants need to understand that and adopt accordingly plans for that situation.
What advice do you have for businesses to keep disruption to a minimum in complying with the new system?
It's all about knowing as much as you can about the new arrangements in as short a time frame as possible, and that means some pretty intense reading, but also discussion, having a talk about it with peers and talking with advisors so as to understand, I guess, the truth from the fiction and what needs to be done now as opposed to what can be left for later on.
And finally, David, what points will you be covering in your presentation to the Fair Work Australia Summit in Sydney at the end of April?
My paper will concern itself with AWAs and what will happen to those in the future. AWAs, of course, will be prohibited. There'll be a new transitional form of agreement, which I'll explain. But I'll also talk about the other options that are available for business in agreement making and how a business might go about running AWAs for a period of time along with other instruments.
David, we look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Thanks very much.